Like and subscribe on the way in the door, my people. I hope you all are having a truly fantastic day today on this Thursday. Before we get started again, I want to take a moment to thank you all for continuously supporting the channel. I cannot thank you all enough. So without further ado, let's get into the topic at hand. Now, if you are a hardcore Allen Iverson fan, you may agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. But I want to talk about some of the negative effects Allen Iverson had on the NBA. Now, first of all, before we get started, let me make it clear that I am an Allen Iverson fan. I have been since he came into the league, and I'm still an Allen Iverson fan. And there's a lot of things that you can say about Allen Iverson. You could say that he never quite became the team player that he could have or should have been. You can say that he never quite became as coachable as he could have or should have been. But what you cannot say about Allen Iverson is that Allen Iverson didn't put it all out there every single time he stepped on the court. I mean, every time you watch this guy, Allen Iverson was definitely a competitor at the highest level. He was a competitor, and to see him, be able to steal a game from the Lakers in those finals, the fact that he even drug his team to the finals again, which is a lot of times when people are trying to compare Kyrie to Allen Iverson, I say, give me Allen Iverson 7 days a week over Kyrie Irving. I just think Allen Iverson is a much tougher player than Kyrie Irving has ever been. And don't get me wrong, I like Kyrie Irving's game, but again, to me, just this whole generation is such a generation of entitled players that mentally, I don't think most of these players could keep up with players from the previous generations. I just don't see it. So here's the thing about Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson kind of bought the street look into the NBA. And again, if you grew up back then and you were a fan of Allen Iverson, again, a lot of us who grew up back then were probably into that street lifestyle at one point or another. And some of us weren't, but I definitely was at one point in my life. And so I definitely resonated with the image that Allen Iverson brought into the NBA. But looking back on it now, I have to be honest that I think Allen Iverson was kind of the beginning of players feeling like they should be able to do whatever they want in the NBA, which ultimately kind of led down this road of entitlement. It's that thing that you should be able to do what you want to do. And if you remember Allen Iverson back then, you remember there was a lot of controversy about how he dressed and how he presented himself. And again, if you were back then, and especially if you were into a certain kind of lifestyle, you probably supported that. It was like, why not? But, in hindsight, again, to me, once you do some growing, and especially if you've ever ran a business yourself, then you see the importance of maintaining a certain image for the sake of the business. And I guess more importantly, to me, what it's really about is making sure the employees understand that if I'm paying you, you can't do whatever you want to do. And I think really that's the long and short of it. So, seeing Michael Jordan come into the arena dressed in a suit and whatnot, to me, it was about more than presenting a good image, but it was about more or less understanding that, hey, if I have the opportunity to make more money than most people will see in their lifetimes, to dress a certain way is not a big deal. To present myself a certain way is not a big deal. And I think this is kind of what with Allen Iverson, we started to lose that. It started to become this, well, why can't I dress however I want, and why can't I do whatever I want or present myself however I want and still get paid? Why should I be penalized, or why should I be criticized, for that? And again, to me, it's less about the actual dress. It's less about how you present yourself, and it's more about just appreciating the opportunity that you've been given. Like I said, to me, if you are presented with an opportunity to make that kind of money, and the only thing you have to do is dress a certain way, it's like, why are we even having a discussion about this? It's like, okay, well, you could not make the money and dress however you want to dress. You cannot make the money and present yourself however you want to present yourself. But to me, it's no different than any other job. It's no different than if you were going to work at McDonald's and have to wear the McDonald's shirts and hats and whatnot. To me, it's no different than that. And then the last thing I would say this. To me, Allen Iverson was kind of the beginning of the generation who, because they watched Michael Jordan, it was a very competitive generation that came from that, but not necessarily the hardest workers. Again, going back to the whole practice thing, and we remember the whole Allen Iverson practice rant, and it turned out that it was more behind that rant than people knew at the time. I think he had lost a good friend of his or something like that. So, I think it actually turned out to be valid of why he was griping about being criticized about the practice things. However, no one knew that at the time. But even outside of that, I think that's kind of the beginning of when players started to not take practice as serious, and that whole attitude, again, of feeling like as long as I show up and compete in the game, I should be okay. And to me, Allen Iverson is kind of the beginning of that generation of players. And of course, we had Kobe, to me, who was the exception of that generation, who had the competitive drive, but also had the extreme work ethic to put behind it. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on AI. And like I said, I do believe in some ways he had a negative impact on the NBA. And like I said, to me, it was more about, it's less about the image and more about the understanding of, hey, you have an opportunity to make this money. Certain things should not be a big deal to have to conform to. Like if you have to wear a suit to make the money, well, why are we even having an argument about this? Like I said, because you cannot wear the suit and don't make the money that I'm offering you. So yeah. So like I said, AI may have been the beginning of players kind of feeling like they should be able to do more or less what they want to do and not have to stick to what the NBA wants them to do as much. But anyway, we're going to wrap this up here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree that AI indeed had some negative effects in the NBA? Do you agree with what I said, or do you have some other points? Please let me know what you guys think in the comments. You all have a truly fantastic day, and I'll see you next time. All right.